Hello, class. This is Professor Wilcox and Professor McCullen, and we're going to, well, I'm not sure. Let me start that again. Hello, class. This is Professor Wilcox and Professor McCullen, and we're going to take a brief look at Unit 3 and talk through the creative project a little bit. We're not sure how many people will be out there, but as usual, if you have questions, you can ask them in the Piazza forum. And other than that, we're just going to use our best instinct as to what people would like to talk about. So please, if you are watching and have something to ask, ask it in the forum, and we'll be checking that periodically. And if you come and watch a replay of this later, you can always ask questions in the forum then, and we'll get to them as they come. So, do you have a place you'd like to start, Professor McCullen? Or I'm just going to call you Rob.
Well,
you said you were getting a question that you wanted to, you thought was a good place to start from the homework.
Yeah, why don't I jump in there? So, can you hear me okay?
Yeah, you're good.
I will share my screen and tell me if you can see my screen.
Yes.
Okay, so, oh no, I don't have Flash installed. This is terrible.
Again.
Embarrassing. Okay, so
how do you live without Flash? Without Flash being
Flash
installed?
is going the way of the dodo.
Right now, though, you seem to be the dodo.
True. Well, I deserve that.
Yeah.
So
People have been saying Flash has gone away for the dodo for 10 years.
Yeah, that's true. I think they mean business this time, but anyway. Yeah, so I got a couple of questions about this homework, and I think I can just sort of describe it. Basically, also there's a breakdown. I'll go to the breakdown. Video can't be played. Okay, never mind. Basically, the thing to remember with scales that I think is hard to remember sometimes is that the pattern of semitones and whole tones is the thing that determines the scale. It's not something that you're trying to find in the notes that you have. It's the thing that determines what the notes will be. So I had a question about this one saying, I got to, I went whole tone, semitone, but I had a whole tone in the scale right there, so I got stuck. And my answer to that was, that means actually that the notes that you have to change because the pattern never changes. The pattern is the thing that drives everything. It's the DNA that determines what the organism is going to be. I don't know if that analogy is useful, but so basically the pattern is everything. Start with your tonic note and then just really it's almost like a very literal minded process. You say, I need a whole tone here. How do I get a whole tone? Next scale step, I need another whole tone. How do I get a whole tone? What do I have to do to the note? You cannot change the note letter name, but you can change the flat or the sharp. So that's really where you have the power, and there will always be an option using a flat or a sharp that will get you there. So that's pretty much it with that one. Let me jump to 17 because I think there was something there as well. Let's see, my screen's being slow. This one is a little bit tricky. You sort of have a few, it looks very simple, but there's a few steps involved to arriving at the answer. You're sort of working backwards. So the first one says, in A minor, what is this pitch's harmonic function? So you're given this pitch floating in space, no context around it, and then you're told what the context is. And by that I mean you're told that this pitch belongs to A minor. It exists in the key of A minor. So what I highly recommend if you're at all unsure about this homework is get some scratch paper. You can print staff line paper off the internet. Just Google staff notation blank paper or something like that. and draw the scale, write out the scale on paper so that you can then imagine where this note fits. And then you'll find, if you do that, that the note actually belongs to that scale, and it's one of the scale degrees. And then you just pick the option. So I'll just give away the answer on this one. You're welcome. Basically, it's A minor. The scale is going to go A, B, C, D, E, F, G, A, tonic, etc. up the scale. And the G is the seventh one, which matches the subtonic. And this actually is a great example of another common confusion between subtonic and leading tone. And the quickest way for me to remember this is that the subtonic is a whole tone before you get to the tonic at the top, and the leading tone is only a semitone before you get to the tonic at the top. In other words, go up to the tonic note A, one step higher, walk back down one step, and if it's a whole tone, it's the subtonic. If you walk back down and it's a semitone, then it's the leading tone. So anyway, that's more than you wanted to know about that one, but hope it's useful. Should we jump to the creative project? Dr. Wilcox, I cannot hear you.
Yeah, sorry, I was muted.
Okay.
And one thing before we do that, what I wanted to say with a lot of these scale homeworks, it's a lot of just counting letters. And this homework that Professor McClellan talked about is particularly important because it's going to make a big chunk of the core concept exam. So if you're asked, what scale degree of a scale it is, remember every scale has one of every letter. So if you are in F, if we tell you you're in F major and we give you some kind of B, it's going to be the fourth scale degree, F, G, A, B, every time. I mean, you don't have to worry about what the accidentals say. You don't have to worry about what the accidental in the key is. All you have to do is count letters. So essentially, when we give you this assignment, all we're asking you to do is to count from 1 to 7. That's it. Really. And the only tricky bit is when you're in a minor key and you get a 7th scale degree. If that 7th scale degree, if that note has an accidental on it, it's going to be the leading tone. If it doesn't, it's going to be the subtonic. But essentially, all you're doing is counting letters there. You're just counting lines and spaces. And that's true for a lot of them.
Yep. Yeah, in general, it's really important just to always be clear about what you can what you have to puzzle over and think hard about and what you can just take as a given. And in every assignment, there's sort of a combination of those two things and being clear on which is which. So like I was saying before, if you are building a scale, then the pattern is a given. It's not debatable. The pattern is the fixed factor, and then there's other things you can change. If you're figuring out what note is in a scale, the letter names are the unarguable thing, and there's always something like that.
Yeah.
So, all right. So again, as Dr. Wilcox said, we're happy to answer questions about individual assignments, but maybe for now we should move on to the creative project.
Yeah, a part of why we do these live events is to discuss some of these singular assignments, like the creative projects, like the core concept exam. And so a lot of what we're going to focus on are those, but if you have questions about other assignments, we're more than happy to answer them. But one of the things, I get questioned about a lot with the creative projects, especially the first one, because people are nervous about it. Again, despite what we tell you in the opening video and the like, we're not expecting you to be Mozart. What we want you to do is just play. And it really doesn't matter what you make as long as you explain some rationale for the decisions you make. All we want you to do is try to make some sound. It doesn't matter if it's really ugly sounds or pretty sounds, but we want you to, once you've made the sound, to sort of say, well, I did it this way because. So you can paint, like a 3-year-old in art class, and the teacher might go, oh my God, that's like a 3-year-old. But in this class, we don't care if you do the music of a child with a stick and one of those metal xylophone things. What we want is just so you go, well, I wanted to do it that way because. So that's essentially what you're doing. And in this case, we want you to keep it within inside, a minor or a defined minor or defined major scale. But beyond that, what you do and how you do it is up to you. And that's why we make the performance just a portion of your grade. And we're so much more interested in accuracy in terms of the notes. At least for me, I'm more interested in the notes than the rhythms, because the rhythms are just harder to master. But the real trick is just not to be freaked out about these assignments. So just follow the steps, make a stab at everything as best as you can, and then just let it ride, and you'll be fine. Do you have any thoughts on that?
No, I absolutely echo that, and just want to add that I think there's, sort of restating what you said, but I think there's this idea in our culture about being a composer or being an artist or being there's some kind of magic to that only certain people have, or that you have to spend decades studying to be a great master of music or something. And we absolutely don't believe that. We think that anybody and everybody can make music and should make music, and that we're not looking for you to be some kind of musical genius. It's all about the process.
You're not magic, Robin?
Not even me.
No.
Much as I'd like to think so.
I look very magical. I bet you. Yeah.
Well, you're
when
magical.
I look is sleepy.
But this is really just about nuts and bolts. It's something everybody can do, and also, in case you're in doubt of that, we can prove it by the fact that we've had hundreds and hundreds of students in this course in the past, and every single one of them has done very well on this assignment if they followed the directions. The only reason anybody got a bad grade is because they either didn't do it or they didn't follow the instructions carefully. Those are the only things that can possibly go wrong. So for instance, you'll get questions from people and it's clear they didn't read the directions before they did it. They just said, we have to make a melody, I'm going to make a melody. And they didn't read the directions of what we're actually looking for. And then you're going to lose points because there's that defined rubric. Our hands are in some ways tied. And additionally, as I said, we give a rubric for a reason. It kind of tells you exactly what we're looking for. And a lot of times we'll get, very nice melodies or very nice tunes that have nothing to do with what we've asked you to do in the assignment. Or we get things which are, people who are new to music. So there's, undoubtedly a little nervousness, but they'll try to do something super complex. And you're like, why are you trying to do something so difficult? Something with so many what are called syncopated rhythms or so many aggressive sounds. And it's like, just do something very simple, follow the directions, make it very basic, and just get through it, and try to do something interesting, because different periods of music, they have different ideas of what's acceptable, and some periods, like the classical period, the complexity level dropped from the period before pretty substantially. And, but at the same time, people were able to make wonderful music in that period. So just because something's not complex or something's not aggressive doesn't mean it can't be interesting and beautiful. So just keep it simple. We're not looking we're not looking just for you to be, you don't have to explain to us how talented you are or, how new you are at this. You just keep it basic. I think another way to explain this is that to the point about reading directions is that actually as you can see here, the directions are several pages long, and there's a lot of information on the page. And it's all there for a reason, but actually probably reading the directions carefully is the most difficult thing about this assignment. Doing the directions is probably easier than reading them. So if you can just dedicate yourself to reading them carefully and
would you like
following
to walk us through the directions and talk about what
yeah, so
what we're really looking for when we look at one of the assignments? What, how do we evaluate this? Because I think
so
sometimes
really,
people don't understand.
yeah, absolutely. It all kind of comes down to these 3 steps that we list at the top. There's 3 components. There's compose the melody, and that means writing down the melody on the staff. So that's kind of, it's not just composing it in your head and knowing what it sounds like. It's portraying it in written music notation, step 1. Then step 2 is making an audio recording of yourself performing your melody. And some people might say, what the heck, I'm not even a musician. How can I be asked to do this? Again, it's really, you can do it as slowly and methodically as you want. There's no, we're not expecting you to be a performer in any professional or quasi-professional sense.
And frankly, just to stop you for a second, I don't have a lot of sympathy for people who say they're not musicians, because humans are profoundly musical in the same way that we all pretty much learn language. There's kind of music embedded, our music sensibility embedded in humans. It's part of the evolutionary process for some reason. It's one of those things that you feel like you could probably pull out of who we are as creatures, and it would be fine. But for some reason, we're very sensitive to sound and music and organization. And even if you can't, play it on a keyboard, or you could sing it, but the idea that you have no musical intuition, that you have no sense of something that might sound good or something that might sound bad, just trust yourself. All the skills you need are in there. And even if they haven't really been refined, you'll be fine. Just make an effort and then talk about the effort you made. Mm-hmm. But don't think you have nothing to share and no capacity, because that's selling yourself short.
Absolutely. Yeah, so then the third component is the writing the analysis, and this is just as important as every other piece of it. This is not just an afterthought. So that's really important. Then, of course, submit everything. That's crucial. So that's step 4. And another key point here, again, it's all about following instructions. Submit only 2 files. If you find yourself submitting 3 files, 4 files, 1 file, 3.5 files, something's gone wrong. So one file is a text file with an image, both in one file, and the other is an audio MP3, not a WAV file, not an AIFF file. Only MP3s are accepted.
Yeah,
what?
Oh, you probably were going to say this, but there's so many people who lose points just because they don't label the file right.
Yes, labeling.
I mean, here's the issue. It's not that we're trying to be pedantic. It's not what we're trying to take points off for every little tiny thing. The fact of the matter is, I get, personally, in this semester, I'll have 100 of these every time that I have to grade. And if people don't label it, or they just put Creative Project 1, I have no idea who this person is.
Yep.
I just have no idea. Or they'll literally put Jane Doe. Yeah. Or, we used to have my name there as a sample. And I'd have 3 or 4 people every semester put Stephen Wilcox, Creative Project 1. It's like, no, I need to know who you are. So the reason we label these is just so we can, we have so many of these to grade. They don't take a lot of time, but they take, 5 to 10 minutes each. And that,
collectively they take a lot.
Collectively, they could take 20 or 30 hours. And if we don't have a clear idea who you are, it just pisses us off right from the beginning. It just makes it all more difficult. So just do yourself a favor.
We assure you that every single thing in here is for good reason. It's none of it is arbitrary. So it looks like we got a question about the text and the Emily Dickinson. Somebody wrote in on Piazza Camellia.
Sure. Let's talk about the text.
Oh, it says, anonymous to classmates. Forget I said your name. I don't know who it was.
It was Sam, wasn't it?
Sam, yes. So the idea here is, this is a relatively new element in the project from past semesters, because we were finding that things were a little too abstract. And so we really want you to be responding to everyone in the class to be responding musically and creatively to a single idea or object. And so in this case, it's this poem by Emily Dickinson, the famous American poet. And the idea is really just that it's an inspiration, and it's meant to, as it says here, stimulate your imagination, give you kind of a basis for everything else you do. And that could mean a lot of different things. So you could use it as, you could write a part of your melody for each line of the poem, a few notes that kind of express that line. You could decide that the poem has kind of a generalized mood, and then try to have your whole melody kind of in a general way match that general mood.
That's probably the easiest way to.
That's probably what we'd recommend.
Yeah, I mean, it's like thinking about, like, you got a movie where you're in the water and there's a shark circling. Right? We're like setting the scene, right? Exactly. We want you to write music that says shark is about to bite your leg off. Well, here we're trying to write. Emily Dickinson is setting a rather profound scene, and just write something that reflects that profundity. But if you want to set the text to music, or if you want to just do part of it or all of it, or essentially you're just looking for something that sparks some emotional resonance in you, and you want to try to make sounds that match that. So you've got to want to sit with the little piano tools and Soundtrap or or a keyboard, and just play for a while until you feel like you have something that matches that tone for you.
Yep, absolutely. So I guess in answer to your question on Piazza, it's a little bit general, but it's meant as an inspiration, essentially. That's really all it is. And as it says here, a poem can have multiple meanings. So each of you may have a different thing that you do with it, and that's fine. You're not going to be graded down because you did the wrong thing with the poem. The only thing wrong you could do is to ignore the poem altogether and not have it be part of the way you're thinking about this. So moving right along, follow the rubric. That's really what we recommend, because that's what we're going to be following when we grade. So in a way, the most important thing is just say melodies between 8 and 10 complete measures. So just check your work, make sure that it's not shorter or longer. Use a major minor scale with at least 2 sharps or flats. That means don't put it in C major. Also don't put it in D flat minor. Or whatever. Just be methodical about this.
Just on this point, I mean, we have you make scales, and we have you do it for a reason, And so when we say we want you to write in a particular key, we want it in that key. So you don't need to include just a lot of random notes. Just use the notes in the key. There's 8 of them. If you want to be a little creative and go outside of them, you can. But generally speaking, what we're looking for is your ability to write a melody inside a single key. So, just pick a key and go with it. And you don't have to pick a super complicated key. I think one of the issues I have a lot when I see these is, students just pick notes. So I'll get a C sharp, and I'll get an E flat, and I'll get a B sharp, or I'll just get random pitches that they sound good to them. But what I don't get is a sense of they're in a key. That's why we have you start and end in the same place. My advice is just to pick a key, and pick an easy key, a key that you feel like you can play in with not a lot of difficulty, like D, or B flat, keys with just a couple accidentals, and use those notes. Don't, again, it's like, keep it simple.
Yep. And then another feature of this is just the sheer notational portion of it. There's certain rules and practices that we use in music notation, and learning those is part of this course. So it's important to really remember the stuff in Unit 2 about the measures have to have the right number of beats. The beats have to match the meter. You have to put the ledger lines in the right place. The stem directions have to point the right way. The accidentals have to be in front of the note on a level with it. We see a lot of accidentals floating in space. So just go back to the lessons, take a look at the examples, and make sure that your score looks the same, has the same rules and follows the same.
Yeah. Do you find you marking off a lot of points for people whose accidentals are floating or stems are pointed in every which way?
In fact, I love those because it makes it so easy to take off points. I love it. So don't let that.
We don't enjoy taking off points.
No, we don't really.
It's painful. It hurts us more than it hurts you.
That's right.
No, I don't want to seem, we don't want to seem flippant about it, but the reason we write all this stuff down is just go through, put your piece that you've made right in front of you and sit with the rubric and just take a pencil and mark the issues that aren't there and just fix them. Because we're going to sit there with the rubric and mark down. And as I said, anyone can do well on this. It's just a matter of whether or not you just follow the directions. If you try to improvise it and make your own musical system, you're going to have problems. But if we say follow stem direction conventions, that's not that complicated. If it's above the middle line, the stem goes down. If it's below the middle line, the stem goes up. If it's on the middle line, it goes the other way. I mean, there's the convention. So just do that.
Absolutely.
Now you won't lose points, and really an unnecessary amount of points. I mean, so many of these things are so easy to fix.
Yep. So
and
then,
the things that might, I was just going to say the next bit, which is maybe a little more harder to fix. We're less critical of these things because we realize that people have different levels of skill.
Yeah, so the recording is really a matter of do your darndest best to make the notes and so the issue that we're looking for here is make sure that the written score matches what you play or sing. So it doesn't have to be fast. The rhythm doesn't have to be perfect. It doesn't have to be some kind of masterful performance. It just has to match. The information on the page has to be heard in the recording. And so that's why we say a lot of points for performance accuracy. The other thing that counts for a lot, and this might sound silly, but it's actually really important, is the recording quality. And again, we're not looking for professional studio recording here, but we get a lot of recordings with the computer fan, the laptop fan is so loud that you can't hear the music at all. Your roommates are laughing and talking in the background. We can't hear the music. There's something horribly distorted. And we know everybody has different computers and different stuff, but just take care with it. If there's a little bit of fuzz or static, that's okay. Don't stress about that, but just make it as clean and audible as you can.
If your mom is washing dishes in the background because you're sitting in the kitchen, you're not going to get a good recording.
Yeah, so little things like that. So if you could be in a quieter room and you can leave the kitchen, do. If that's the only place you can work and there's no way around it, don't upend your life for it.
Yeah, but at least, I mean, we've had recordings where people are literally yelling in the background or random things. We realize that everything's difficult and not everybody has the same setup, same capacity, but make at least an effort. It's like when you hand in a paper, you make an effort for it not to coffee stains and
Exactly.
pencil
Yeah,
marks or something. You try to make a decent presentation. And if it doesn't sound good to you, it's probably not going to sound
yeah,
too good to us. But try to make, again, we're just trying to get through these as quickly as possible. So try to make it, try to make it sound like we can actually hear what you're saying or hear what you're performing.
Yep. And it must be an MP3. So then analysis. This again is really important. As you can tell, it takes up a lot of space on the page here on the instructions, and it's worth a lot of points. And this again is a place where people can really lose points if you just don't take care with it. So going back to the text, step one is describe the meaning of this text in your own words. We're not looking for any particular answer here. This is up to you. This is your own personal interpretation. What we are looking for is that you had some thought about it. We don't want you to say, oh, this text is really meaningful. Well, what does that mean? We have no idea what meaning it has. Try to be specific. Go, point to something concrete, something definite that's unique and your own perspective. Same thing with what are your two greatest challenges. Don't say like, it was really hard and it took a lot of time, because that's, I guess you could say that, but it's pretty vague in general. That could be anybody. Try to be as specific as possible. Like I really struggled with, making it sound right in the key that I was working in because of the B flat or something. I'm probably something you'll think of something better than that, but be specific. And then how did those musical elements solve the challenges? We're really trying to get at the idea that music can have a meaning that's real and definite, and that you as a composer of your melody have creative power over how you're expressing yourself. So be really specific with this, and make sure that we can understand the connection between the melody you wrote and how you think about the poem. That's really, it's all about that. Connect your music and the text. Connect them together for us, because we don't know what you're thinking. You have to explain it to us, and this is your chance. And there's a long rubric, and so read it carefully. And we're going to be using it, and you can use it. You can do your whole project direct from this rubric. If you can see that you're acing it, then you're going to do great on the assignment.
Yeah, and one thing I want to point out is, one of the questions, I think it's question 2. Could you scroll up to that, Robin? I'm going to could you,
Step
why don't you say
here?
something to the camera?
Yeah. You mean right here?
Yeah, not in the rubric, but actually the questions. In some ways, we ask you to talk about the meaning of the poem. Yeah, hello. Do you see it? Why don't you say something?
So what were the two greatest challenges for you in trying to express this meaning?
Yeah.
And how did you use the following elements?
Yeah, in general, most of your text, most of what you write about should be about the music that you talk about. So if you spend so much time talking about the poem, or so much time, if you spend so much time talking about the poem, and never any time talking about specific things that you did in your music or specific ways that you overcame these challenges, then we have no idea whether you understood anything. That's why we kind of specify, most of your effort should be on question 2 or question 3. So please make sure that you answer all the questions to the best of your ability, which by necessity will mean you probably want to spend a little more questions on question 2.
Yep, and we got another question on Piazza. So question is, how do you draw barred, say, 8th notes in the Flash tool for CP1? Also, is there any way to incorporate dynamics tempo? Yeah, so the answer to the first part is you can't. So those of you, this is a question from somebody who I think probably has a little bit of musical background and is used to taking 2 8th notes and beaming them together with a little horizontal bar. Unfortunately, that's not possible given the technical constraints of our Flash tool.
Yeah, and why do we use this Flash tool? I mean, there's better tools available.
Yes, great question. Why don't we let you use something like Noteflight or Finale or Sibelius? Those are notation programs, and they do a really good job of notating music, and they do a lot of things for you. And the reason that's precisely why we don't let you use them is that they do too much for you. We want this to be as close as possible to handwritten notation where basically we're giving you more opportunities to make mistakes, and which then proves to us that you know how to do it if you don't make those mistakes.
Which is why if you actually look in the assignment, and I'm not sure if this is something I added over the summer, so maybe this will be news to Dr. McCullen, but we actually say if you have a good scan, you can write it on paper.
Yep.
And the fact that you don't have to use the tool. So if you want to beam your notes and you want to add dynamics, write it out on paper, and scan it, and send it in. And again, if we can't read it, then that's a problem. So use your judgment. If it's readable, then it's fine. But the fact of the matter is we don't do beams in this tool because there are simply too many beaming options.
Mm-hmm.
And as you saw with the one homework assignment where we have you draw in beams, as soon as you start doing beams and attach it to note heads, especially note heads on different levels of the staff, then you'll have to have different angled beams, and the complexity was really more than was possible without going to a full-blown notation program. And the notation program, they'll make sure you have enough beats in the bar, and it does all the beaming for you, and it plays things back, which is very helpful, but it's just not what we want.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, and it's really obvious if you use a notation program to do your performance.
Yeah, we both use them all ourselves.
It's so obvious. It doesn't matter what you say. It doesn't matter how clever you are. It is very, very obvious.
Yep.
And I just open up I can open it up and take a screenshot of your audio file and show how they overlay exactly how the beats are machine precise. Don't do it. It's just, it insults everybody's intelligence. We want to hear you in some respects playing with sound and flailing about. So don't worry.
Mm-hmm.
Just make a decent attempt to try to make the sounds yourself. We're not going to kill you on it. We really aren't. That's not what we're about. But don't lose all your points.
That's a good thing. Yeah.
Yeah, don't lose all your points just because you want it to not sound like you're performing it. So you want it to sound like amazing.
We'd rather have it be at
it's not American Idol with a voice or something.
We'd rather have it be painfully slowly. Like if you want to play it like so slow that it's absurd, just so you get all the notes right, that's totally fine.
Totally cool.
So just going back to the question on Piazza, the second part, is there a way to incorporate dynamics, tempo, etc.? Again, there is not in our Flash tool, but again, if you want to actually write it by hand on a piece of paper and put everything in there and then take a really good photograph of it and
screenshot,
put it in your document.
Scan's better.
Scan or whatever, as long as it's really easy to read. We like that. That's great. It won't necessarily get you more points, but it's perfectly nice, and we welcome that. So
and we're happy to have you talk about that as a musical consideration that you did to enhance the emotional quality.
Yeah. So is there I'm just figuring we should probably wrap up soon. Is there anything else we need to cover?
I don't think there's anything else. Just, again, just to reiterate, don't panic about this. Just follow the instructions. We get trained musicians who do terrible jobs, and we get people with no training who do wonderful jobs. It's all just a matter of whether you play and follow the instructions.
Yep. Alrighty. So we're here standing by for questions, and the unit is due on Friday at 11:59 p.m.
Yeah.
Oh, I should let me unshare my screen so that you
I'm
can.
not. I'm not sure. I mean, I didn't catch what you said, but I think you're saying that everything is due Friday at 11:59 p.m. If you're having trouble, just let us know. We're very flexible. If there's something that we can do to help, if you need a little more time, again, just talk to us. We're totally open to letting you do that. But what we don't like, we don't like getting an email saying, "I'm having problems. Can you help me?" You know.
Yeah.
Well, it's like, what are you having problems with? Or I don't get this. I tried the assignment and I can't do it. And I'm like, well, what did you try? Well, I tried the first one and I didn't get it, so I stopped. And I'm not going to start again until you tell me how to do it. I mean, it's like, no, please try some. Give us something to work with. Because, we spend a lot of time creating a course and we have no intention of reteaching whole subjects or whole lessons or whole chunks of a course because you have a problem. We want to know specifically what the issue is, or that you've made some actual attempt to understand what you're looking at, because it just gives us something to work with, something to help you with. Otherwise, it's just like, can you completely rewrite what you wrote before, or completely restate what you said before? It's very difficult.
Also, screenshots are great if you're emailing us.
Oh, love the screenshots.
Yeah, and
show us the problem.
And it's also great to post your question on Piazza first, because other students might be able to help you before we even get to it. So, alrighty.
I think we're done. I think it's time for bed for you guys on the East Coast. Of course, here in Taiwan, it's all sunny out.
Oh my God, that's just bizarre.
It's so strange.
Yep. Alrighty. Okay. Good night, students.
Good night.
Be good.
Night, all.
Don't do anything you wouldn't do. And,
they're younger. They can do whatever they want.
Yeah, you can do all sorts of stuff.
Do things we wouldn't do anymore. Okay.
Just be safe.
Yeah. And make sure you're registered to vote. Okay. Bye-bye.
Yeah, exactly. Good night.